Thank you for tuning in to today's video. This video is part of a series exploring the creation of our diets and the role it plays in the world around us. This video will look specifically at MyPlate and MyPyramid, building off of my last video explaining how these recommendations are created. MyPlate and MyPyramid are watered-down translations of the USDA guidelines, and over the years have become incredibly problematic. The first major issue is the ambiguity behind each. Neither one distinguishes between healthy and unhealthy fats, oils, sugars, or grains. If you're looking at the protein section alone, there is no distinction between red meat, which is filled with fats and sugars, and beans, which are much healthier. It also doesn't warn against processed meats, which have been deemed carcinogenic to humans by the World Health Organization. It also mandates dairy, which has been flagged by leading nutritionists as harmful in large amounts, as it contains oils, fats, sugars, and hormones that we really shouldn't be consuming. Now, there's actually a reason that dairy is mandated despite scientific recommendation, and it's a little worrisome. It dates back to World War II. Now, post-World War II, American farmers struggled to maintain their crops as prices fluctuated. In an attempt to stabilize these prices, the Credit Commodity Corporation was created, permitted to buy up excess stock for government use. In the 1970s, the country was struggling once again with dairy shortages and price inflation. So the government once again got involved, which caused the price of dairy to absolutely tank, threatening farmers. So President Carter created a new subsidy program, which farmers took full advantage of. This, again, allowed farmers to create more stock than they could sell, and the government would buy it and pay for it. So farmers created more dairy, the government bought that up, and it created an even larger store. The government was very quickly left with over 500 million pounds of stored dairy products. Entered Nixon, who was faced with a new crisis. Millions of Americans were going hungry, and millions of pounds of cheese were just molding away. He decided, finally, that all of this excess cheese would be used to feed the poor as subsidized food. It went to the elderly, poor families, and organizations that served them, retirement homes and public schools. The 90s were then marked by the creation of Dairy Management Incorporated, designed to sell as much dairy as possible. They are what gave us the Got Milk campaign, designed to sell off all of the dairy stores. In addition, contracts between private organizations and the DMI led to food items like Domino's 7-cheese pizza and Taco Bell's very cheesy quesadilla. Now, this sounds all good and fun, but legal scholar and food oppression expert Andrea Freeman argues that the DMI's efforts impose health costs on Americans generally, but disproportionately harm low-income African-American communities and Latina or Latinos who live in urban centers dominated by fast food restaurants. These dairy stores are still being pumped into the school system and into chain restaurants with dozens of super cheese products. The dairy prices that started in the 1970s have calmed down slightly. However, the Trump administration has once again provided heavy subsidies to dairy farmers to offset a volatile US-China trade war, which is threatening another 1970s crisis. And with the public demand for milk dropping, that excess cheese and dairy has to go somewhere. The 500 million pounds in the 70s has become 1.4 billion pounds of stored dairy all across the country as of 2018, ready to be pumped into vulnerable communities, families, and institutions. Dairy isn't good for us. It's good for big agribusiness. And the flaws in MyPlate are the same as the flaws with MyPyramid. And in some versions of MyPyramid, they don't even include what the food groups are, and both tragically lack the necessity of regular exercise. Luckily for us, there are other plates that are clearer and provide genuine advice, like that of Harvard Medical School. These emphasize the importance of fruits and vegetables and the extreme limitation of red meat and dairy. They distinguish between types of meat and proteins. They exclude potatoes from the vegetable group and omit dairy entirely. This is a plate that distinguishes between the good and the bad and gives guidelines free from lobbying or bribes. I'll be providing links to both of these plates below. Now, it's difficult to find advice that works, but unfortunately for us, the USDA does not have our best interest in mind. The Harvard University MyPlate and MyPyramid are incredibly accurate and are based solely off of sound scientific advice. So thank you for watching. This video ends my creation segment. My next video will give an overview of how meat impacts our health. It is general, as actually laying out the full impact would take much longer than a 10-minute video. Below, I'll be providing links to many of the resources that I use, including Harvard resources and Dr. Willet's Eat, Drink, and Be Healthy. He's a researcher and professor with Harvard University. See you in the next video.